Welcome back, and aren't you guys all glad that Megan is still in fact alive? Wonderful stuff. Now we've got ourselves finally into a magic spot here with the Hukumuri male, and I'm looking forward to spending the rest of the morning with him. Now, even though he's looking a little bit sleepy now, he is a man on a mission, and I highly doubt that he is going to continue sleeping here. He will probably get up and continue to move at some points during the day, and he's been moving a lot recently, and that's because he is recently kind of trying to acquire territory in this area. It's literally within the last few weeks that he's come onto the scene. And the first time we saw him, I think, was probably somewhere around the 10th of December. We stumbled into him on a bushwalk, and he's been spending more and more time on the property since then. He was seen competing with another male leopard to the north of us called Djuma, and that was just a few days ago. They didn't actually come to blows with one another that we saw, and it's uncommon for leopards to do that. So what they tend to do is walk side by side and vocalize at one another, kind of shouting at one another as they go. And it seemed like he kind of won the dispute over, well, that he was having with that male to the north. We haven't seen him interacting with our dominant male here, Tingana, just yet, but I'm almost certain he would have. Deanna, you'd like to know if this leopard has been sawing. Well, not this morning. We haven't heard any calls, and we also haven't seen him scent mark. It's not to say that he hasn't. We haven't spent a great deal of time with him since we kind of came onto the scene here, but he has been seen scent marking in this territory that is not his, even though he is kind of doing his best to acquire the land. And he could well. He's a lot younger, we presume, than Tingana, who's our dominant male for the time being. And exciting stuff as dominance of the leopards in this area seems to be shifting. It sadly, though, like we've said a little bit earlier, doesn't bode well for a leopardess called Thandi and her youngster, because he will kill her little cub if he finds it. He's covered in ticks, so he's obviously not spending too much time grooming himself. You can see lots of little dots on his head there, so too focused on trying to acquire land and not spending too much time cleaning himself. Michael, you'd like to know, how deep has he moved into Djuma? Well, as far as we've documented, he's kind of only heading into about a third of the property. He's pushing into the east. So basically, if you cut up our property is basically square, and he's moving in the western third from the southern boundary all the way to the northern boundary. He's moving about a third, into our western portion of Djuma, and Tingana seems to have pushed further to the east towards Torchwood. So he's definitely not, that we've seen, moving far into Djuma, but that doesn't mean to say he is, of course, or hasn't, of course, done that. So much goes on without our knowledge, but at least now we kind of have got him banked for this morning, and we'll spend as much time as we can today. Mita, you'd like to know if anybody's seen another male leopard recently, a male leopard called Mvula, who used to be dominant before Tingana. So Mvula was the dominant male when I came onto the scene about 3 years ago. And no, I haven't heard him being seen for weeks. So no updates there as to where he is and what he's doing. What you tend to find happening is once male leopards kind of start becoming a little bit old and no longer reigning dominant, they'll still need somewhere to live, and they'll often just fly below the radar of the new dominant male. They won't scent mark, they won't really compete, they'll avoid females, and that is kind of what Mvula is doing. And the same goes for young males before they become dominant. So you do get on both ends of the spectrum, young leopards and really old leopards that are just kind of existing without competing too much for ladies. Sorry everyone, I'm having trouble with my comms this morning, so battling to hear exactly what questions you're asking me. PT Watcher, you'd like to know if Tundi would follow Tingana if he was pushed off the property by this male. Only up to a point, because she's going to come up against other leopardess. So male leopards and their quarrels between land and territory are strictly between men, and females have their own quarrels and kind of fights over territory. So it's not as easy as her just following her boyfriend around as he moves off, because she is, like I say, going to come up against resistance from other females. She'll definitely do what she can to stay as much as possible in Tingana's territory, because she knows that way her cub will be safe. But again, she's not going to have free reign as to go wherever she likes. And who knows, maybe that's already why she is heading further to the south and east of our property, or east thereof, because of this guy coming in and pushing in from the west. So she could already very well be changing her movements and her cub's positions due to this guy coming onto the scene. Very good. Well, we're not going to be going anywhere, even though he is a little bit sleepy. I'm feeling confident that he's going to get up and take us on a stroll before the end of the safari. And we'll wait here patiently for that moment and send you back to Noel, who is looking at something under the microscope.
Epic sighting, Scott. I love it. Now, I have found a little dropping from a mouse or a murid species that's been roaming around inside the tent. So this is the hard outer layer, and then I've broken it in half so that on the right-hand side you can see what's inside of there. So you can see that there's husks of grass seeds, those yellowy bits, and then little tiny bits of little parts of insects that are in there, but most of this is grass and grass seeds, and that is what that mouse will survive on while it's busy rummaging around. Now, I have a feeling that it probably doesn't live inside the tent, but I wouldn't say that it is too far away. Our tent is in the middle of the bush. It's not far from where we live, but we also live in the middle of the bush. And it's quite digested, much more so than the elephant dung that we were looking at earlier. I don't know the exact percentage that a mouse will digest, or a murid will digest its food, but because it's a smaller mammal species, it really needs to make sure that its nutrient intake from the food that it's eating is at the highest level possible. So something like a scrub hare will do a form of coprophagy called refection. A coprophagy is when you eat to someone else's dung, so that would be like a warthog piglet or a, are you okay? A warthog piglet or a zebra, tiny little baby zebra, that will eat its mum's dung to get the nutrients that it needs into its cecum to help digest the food. Now, something like sorry, I've got Ferg running around in the background here. He was getting the drone, and I was like, what's going on? What's going on? No, there was like 4 droplets of rain that came down, and our equipment's super sensitive. So sorry about that. Decorum and professionalism has just flown out the window from my side. I'm very sorry. Usually I can keep going and I'll just sort of watch out of the corner of my eye, but I was very concerned with what's happening. Oh, and the giggle fits are here. Okay. So the scrub hare does refection rather than coprophagy. Coprophagy is eating someone else's dung, and the scrub hare eats its own dung to help digest the nutrients that are coming through and to make sure to get enough of the nutrients out of there. Now, a mouse has a very, very, very high metabolism compared to the size of its body, and so it needs to move around very quickly, which uses up a huge amount of energy, and then its body has to be able to process that food in an efficient manner, not like our elephant. Elephants are not efficient at all. I would actually even say that we as humans are probably not as efficient at digesting the foods that we choose to eat either. So if you're curious, because I'm sure you are, this is the size of the dropping. I'm going to put it in my now very dirty hand after rummaging around. So it's teeny, 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 tiny. So obviously under the microscope it looks completely different. Now, I would just like to say thank you to all of you that compared my Africa photo to a Christmas sock. I would agree. It looks more like a Christmas sock than, in fact, a map of Africa. All right. So Hukumuri is still with Scott, or Scott is still with Hukumuri, however you would like to put it. So I think let's head on over to him so we can get a little bit more leopard love.
He's going to start moving soon after a little bit of cleaning. Hello everyone, welcome back. And I've got 0 comms with final control, hence me not hearing a word that you were coming to us. Let me jiggle my cables and see if anything helps. There we go. We've got you now, Bex. Not too sure what the issue could be, having a small nightmare with comms this morning. And as you heard me saying, I'm confident that he is going to get up soon. He's going to yawn once or twice, and then he is going to continue heading towards a herd of buffalo, where I'm hoping he's going to try and snipe a youngster. It'll be an incredible thing to pull off, because the adults will definitely try and defend the youngster as and when he catches one, but leopards are experts at stealth, and he could manage to slink below the radar. He's got an interesting kind of a scar on his shoulder there where the rosettes meet up, so that's quite an interesting diagnostic mark. Ready to go. You would like to know how long on average will male leopards reign dominant over a territory, and kind of 2 or 3 years I think would be your average good reign. But a couple of years either side of that is possible. Of course, there are just so many variables involved in answering a question like that and in the life of any dominant male leopard. But let's take Tingana, for example. He came into this area about, I'd say, 2.5 years ago, and now already he's getting pushed out. So that's a kind of good example of the case at hand. Tingana came in, he's been dominant, now he's getting pressure from this guy. Also, I mean, there's hugely varying demographics of leopards. So here in the Sabi Sands there's a very high density of leopards, and that means I think that males will have more competition and therefore have shorter reigns as dominant males than in areas where there are less leopards with less competition. But yeah, I'd say 2 to 3 years would be a good innings. Anything upwards of that would be really good, and anything less than that would obviously just mean an unlucky male's already been ousted, having not been on the throne for too long. I mean, it's fascinating to think that this guy is competing with definitely Djuma. That's been documented 3 days ago, so a male that's dominant to the north of us. I'm almost certain he's had some kind of words with Tingana so far. Who knows who he's dealing with to the west of us. So he is really, really busy. He's got a lot on his plate at the moment, and I guess all male leopards will kind of be preparing themselves for this point in their life when it's time to really start making ends meet and start trying to establish oneself. And he is kind of going full ball at it at the moment. It would be awesome to be able to just follow him 24 hours a day to understand exactly what he gets up to. Hello to Michael, who I'm told is a new viewer, and it's very good to have you on safari with us. Michael, I must say that this is not our regular vehicle. We've just had to rig it up with a tripod and a camera because our regular vehicles have broken. And I've completely forgotten. Oh no, you would like to know if we get any panthers here. I'd just forgotten your question. And well, this is a form of a panther. Its Latin name is Panthera pardus. We also get Panthera leo, the lion, here. But ordinarily, I think panthers are usually jaguars, or people use the term panther to talk about jaguars in South America. We do not get any jaguars here in Africa. But this is a part of the Panthera genus. And this is 2 of 3 big cats that we get in this area, or 1 of 3 big cats that we get in this area. We also get lion and very occasionally cheetah. The crew up in the Masai Mara are more likely to deliver cheetah for you, though. There's higher populations of them there. But those are the 3 big cats of Africa: lion, leopard and cheetah. Tigers and jaguars are elsewhere. And hopefully we'll be able to take you guys on some tiger and jaguar safaris in the future. That would be a dream come true for me. I've seen neither of those big cats in the wild. What has got your attention? There's some squirrels that started alarm calling, and then he kind of picked up his head and is now looking in that direction. Imagine if Tingana came onto the scene. It is possible. It would be a very pleasant surprise to see another male leopard on the scene. But no guarantees that is going to happen. We'll just be sitting here waiting patiently. Like I said a bit earlier, I'm confident that he is going to get up and keep moving. So are you. Back to Jamie in the Mara.
Okay, so while the Hukumuri Tingana situation rages on, we finally found you some animals. Whoopee! Some little Thompsons and some Dopey as well. Here we go. And both the Tommies and the Topi are now reaching the point where it is breeding season. More strictly so for the Topi, who are coming into what's known as the time of lekking, or when they form a lek, which is essentially one giant Topi singles bar. I don't quite know how else to describe it. The males stand up on termite mounds, they display, they make themselves look big and strong, and they fight off any nearby Topi males, and the females all gather, and actually even occasionally fight over the access to the males with other females. So it is coming up to Topi breeding season, and as a result, the last few times I've sat with Topi, it's been highly entertaining just to watch them. Unfortunately, this particular herd all seems to be quite calm now, just because I wanted to show you what their behavior is like. But the males are really seriously strutting their stuff. I don't quite know how else to phrase it. They're trotting around with their heads up in the air, and they look like one of those people that has arrived at a party and can't stop looking at themselves in the mirror. And they're sort of shaking their heads and noses up, but it's very entertaining to watch. And then trotting, just to show how big and strong they are. Or, you know, just casually walking up to someone and causing a bit of a fight before going back to breakfast. They are definitely one of my favorite aspects of the Mara has been the amount of time we've spent with Topi. Fit and strong, well, I suppose fit is the wrong word to use when you describe an animal, but they are really quite, they're built for running, and they're built for long distance running as well. The fastest antelope out here and again with exceptional stamina. And when you look at an antelope that is designed in the way that a Topi is, it's more prominent in something like a wildebeest, which is of course related to them distantly. If you look at the shape of their bodies, really powerful shoulders and sloping backs into quite small back legs. It tells you something about the animal concerned, and that is that they have exceptional stamina. It's not quite as obvious on the topi as it is in the hartebeest or in the wildebeest, but it does mean that they are designed to run for long distances. Ooh, proud cat mama. Off the top of my head, I don't know the gestation period of a topi, but I'm going to say we can work it out quickly. If they do most of their mating in March, and most of the births are around about, when were we seeing baby topi? November. April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. 8 months? Sounds about right for an antelope that side. And of course what you'll find is that not all of the initial, when the females come into estrus, which they do come into estrus together, hence why you've got that breeding season, you'll find that not all of them become pregnant straight away. So there'll be a second estrus cycle, a second breeding season, which will come about a month afterwards or 2 months afterwards, and that is when you will have the late births. And that's why we're seeing a lot of little baby topis running around at the moment. And as for the exact gestation period, I'm guessing at just over 8 months, possibly up to 9 months. No, I'm going to go 8 months. It works out. March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. And they were born in the beginning of November, so it must be 8 months. I should know that off the top of my head. I absolutely know that, and all I can say is, well, at least we can problem solve and work it out together. Must be 8 months. The breeding season is rapidly approaching. Both the females and the males have horns for our new viewers, just in case you were wondering about that. The dimorphism is what was I talking about? Topi, horns, dimorphism. Very little difference between the males and the females out here, except for a little bit of a size difference. We're not going anywhere. We're going to stick with these topi and see if they are going to get up to their entertaining antics. Speaking of entertaining antics, Noelle is having a wonderful time in the tent, and she just can't get enough of that microscope.
All right, we are going to play, not Where Am I? It was what we play with James when we do TV, but we're going to play What Am I? And while you're thinking about what could possibly be under this microscope, Jamie, I want to reassure you that your file 13 is intact and that you have in fact said the gestation period of topi correctly. It is 8 months, approximately 8 months. So do not fear, my friend, your brain is still in working order. And those topi are amazing. I have not seen a topi actually since I worked in Kenya, which was a really, really long time ago. And then I was actually calculating when's the last time I used a microscope. It was probably about 20 years ago when I was in biology class and we were growing bacteria in petri dishes and then looking at it under a microscope and the different ways that it can form and what that means. Pathology and diseases I find super interesting, so we did a little bit of work there, and I think that will be my next extracurricular study, is pathology and wildlife diseases in particular, and maybe I'll get to look at some interesting things under the microscope. Now, the What Am I is something that we've already looked at today. We've seen it on the regular camera, not just the microscope camera, and we had a nice discussion about it. I'm being a little bit horrible by zooming in quite hectically on what this is, but I want you to notice that there's a lot of fibrous material that's happening here, as well as what looks almost like sap. There's a little bit of sugar residue, or I can't think of another way to put it, a little bit of sugar residue there. And this is, in fact, a close-up of that marula pip inside, the seed of the marula that we were looking at earlier that the squirrel had chewed on. And I've just zoomed in here very closely, and it actually is almost like a little bit of art with these bits of sugar crystals that are on there, and you can see where it's been chewed off a bit and moved around by that squirrel. Now the dark little bits are getting into the more core part of the nut itself. Now I'm going to see what happens when we try and come away from it a little. And it goes blurry, of course, sorry. So when I'm working this microscope, there's one side, on this side, that's what we do to move it up and down to get farther away. And then there's another little bit that obviously for the focus. So there we go. That's about as far zoomed out as I can do with the microscope at the moment. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out from underneath the microscope. We've got things blowing around, and then we're just going to have another look at it with the camera here. So obviously very different with our eyes and the camera eyes as opposed to that microscope. Now let's head back up to Jamie, to her lek of topies who are busy. I love the single bar comment. That was awesome, Jamie.
Our topi are up to something. Look, we've got a male that has just come in. There he goes. He's moving in. No, he's the one on the left that's really causing the issues. There he's chasing the topi round over there. That's him. This male came trotting in. There we go. This is what I was waiting for. As a male moves in and somewhat indiscriminately chases both the females and the males around and has achieved very little. Except perhaps for creating a large space around him, and now something's bitten him. Quite possibly a tsetse fly or one of the biting flies. Oh, challenger. No, okay, running away. Let me make sure you're gone. What? That shows them. Now what? Where'd everybody go? Ladies? Did you see that? Anyone see that? Ah! Fly's still biting him. Okay, now we're going to do the head up and the trot. Come on, buddy. Oh no, we're going to do a proper canter. Chasing young males around. There we go, the rivals are shown off. Here we go. Well done, buddy. Now you have to go and find a lady. Okay, well, we've spoken about the fact that in the first round of the breeding season in the topi, not all females necessarily fall pregnant, and that applies to all animals with a breeding season. It happens with impala as well. And Mason is wondering if the chances of an animal or chance of a human falling pregnant are the same as an animal falling pregnant. And you know, that is a really good question, and I'm not 100% sure of the answer. I'm inclined to say that human beings will tend to have more circumstances that might actually change. I don't know if I would want to say the level of fertility, but the chances of conception and carrying a successful pregnancy. I think that there are more circumstances that could possibly prevent that. Not talking about contraception or anything like that. I'm just talking about various circumstances, whether it's exposure to certain chemicals or we do lead slightly unnatural lifestyles, no matter how hard we try. Stress, anything like that. Whereas animals seem to be, well, let's say they're pretty good at reproducing. They're very efficient at it. So my suggestion would be, unless there is a problem, a biological problem with the animal itself, they have a slightly higher chance of falling pregnant. But you know, I'm actually not 100% sure on that, and I'd be interested to see. We're lumping all of the animals together into one group, which is also quite a potentially risky venture in terms of being scientifically accurate. But I'm inclined to say, just off, as an instinctive response to that question, is that animals are more likely to fall pregnant. I don't know. It's a good question, and I'm talking as a general situation rather than in a situation where couples, for example, have struggled to fall pregnant for whatever reasons. You've abandoned all the ladies, mister. You've chased everyone away, and now you've left the ladies and gone off elsewhere. That's not a very good tactic. It's not going to increase your chances of drawing the attention of a female. You've just caused chaos and then left. Francis, let me get you there we go. Let's have a closer look at the topi with where the sun is slightly better, so we can actually address your question about the bump on a topi's back. And the answer to that is it's They're also jumpy at the moment. It is part of the spine and the shoulder blades and the attachment point of that structure. So just like in a human being, but obviously slightly different in terms of shape, but where the scapula meets the spine and where they're connected, and it creates, particularly up there, the vertebral, what do you call them, for goodness sake? The parts that protrude from the vertebra. Those act as a very strong attachment point. So when you get any kind of protrusion in an animal, whether it is on, for example, the skull of a hyena, or whether you're looking at the spines of various animals, when you get protrusions like that, it usually means that it serves as a strong anchorage point for the muscles and for the ligaments to join on there. So that in turn suggests an increase in power or strength, which is borne out in practice by the speed of the topi, the speed at which they can run. So it's a muscle attachment point. The greater the area, the stronger the attachment, and the less chance they have of any kind of injury or damage. And that's part of what I was actually talking about when I was talking about their sloping backs, very well developed shoulders, and the top part of their spines. So I assume that it is what you're talking about. What on earth? Somebody help me, please. The parts of the vertebra that stick out. Oh, for goodness sake. I promise you I knew that 2 minutes ago. It's not a crest, it's a... Oh, goodness. This is what happens, you know. Most people, when they go blank, at most there's about 2 or 3 people to see them go blank, whereas out here on these live safaris, when you go blank, fortunately we have a viewer family who can help us out, but it tends to come with witnesses. For some reason, all I can think of is the words sagittal crest, and that's not what I'm trying to talk about. I'm sure there's some vertebra in the tent. Perhaps if Noel could demonstrate what I was talking about. The processes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you, Rebecca. It was exactly what I was trying to talk about. The vertebral process. Thank you, Ashley. That is exactly what I was trying to talk about. I really do appreciate it. And that's where the various muscles attach and the ligaments attach. And the more developed it is, the more powerful, or at least the stronger the join. And all of the mammals that we see out here follow the same basic design that we do. Yes, we walk upright and we don't walk on 4 legs, so obviously the shapes of things are different. But essentially, when you get right down to the essence of things, we are exactly the same. All right, well, Noelle is coming to my rescue. Thank you, Noelle. She has picked up some vertebra, and she'll be able to show you what on earth I've been babbling about.
All right, Jamie, I don't know how much I'm going to rescue you here. I'm going to try. All right, so basically I've taken the few vertebrae that we have in here, and then I've sort of stuck them together as they would be stuck together in life, not in death. And basically what Jamie is talking about is this part. This is what's going to show through at the back end. Okay, now I've Googled a little bit so that, Jamie, here we go. The process is a bony projection of the posterior or the back of each vertebra. So this is the back of each vertebra. And it's where the vertebral arc joins and provides the attachment points. All right, so that would be there. So Jamie, that's the best that I can do on your discussion, my friend. I actually, to be honest with you, can't really say too much more about it. My anatomy brain in that area is not the best. It is not my highlight, that's for sure. Now, Sheila, I believe your 14-year-old daughter said that marula nut under the microscope looked like moldy cheese, and that gave me a very good chuckle. It did look like moldy cheese. That is very true. And then a few of you have sent through answers about Bahuti and some information. Apparently he was born in August of 2012. When I saw him was November of 2013. So I actually thought he was a little bit older when I saw him, and then obviously not have knowing all of that information. He was a bit younger there, and apparently he's moved into the Monuleti, and it's not really a male that we see often, and that happens when males reach about 2 years old, sometimes a little bit older. They move out and go and try and find their own space in the world. Now Hassana is a little bit of a different scenario, as is Tumba, and that has a lot to do with Karula passing away and leaving voids, and the different females trying to fill those voids. And it's again part of our really interesting leopard saga that carries on and on and on and on, and Scott's been doing an excellent job of chatting about Hukumuri and how he's fitting in with being a new male in the area. And I know it's very tough for all of us. Obviously we don't want anything to happen to Tundi's cub, but it's very true that the genetics that come with Hukumuri are important. They're important to filter through so that the gene pool of the leopard stays strong rather than stagnant. So leopards can mate for multiple generations and inbreed for multiple generations in that mating without having too much of an issue. But that gene is needed, the new genes are needed to then refresh the gene pool to then carry on. So when you have inbreeding, it's just a concentration of certain types of genes, and if those certain types of genes are good genes, that's fantastic. But then the more inbreeding that you have and the more inbreeding that you do, the chances of a recessive gene that might not have a good trait to it tends to pop up, and that's when it's good to get the new genes coming in to refresh that pool. We as humans, along our arc evolutionary, especially where we are now, have a smaller gene pool to work with than, say, a lot of the leopard communities, as it were. All right, other than that, I'm going to have to see what else we can come up with to show you here. And Scotty D has Hukumuri, and again, let's head on over to him so we can get some nice leopard views.
Yes, like Noel says, it is great for the leopard gene pool that this newcomer is here. We, of course, have stressed, though, how it may not be in the best interest of a specific female called Tundi and her youngster, because sadly that youngster is not in a safe position having this guy pushing in onto the scene. And if he does manage to overthrow Tingana from this area, there is a high likelihood that it'll just be a matter of time until he stumbles upon Tundi and her youngster. And it's not just the youngsters that are in danger. They are the kind of main risk, or under the most threat from a male leopard. But even a leopardess who's trying to defend her cub could get killed in the crossfire. And I remember seeing a very difficult video to watch of a male leopard racing up a tree, and he was fighting with a cub that was probably about 9 months old, so quite a big cub. And the mother heard the commotion, went running up the tree, and the male leopard then attacked the leopardess and went flying out of this tree with her and killed her upon landing on the ground. And then I'm guessing he went and finished off the cub thereafter. So it is an example of an adult female being killed by a new male. And I guess it's no different to male lions, a dominant coalition of male lions, or at least a new one coming onto the scene. They too will mainly be attacking cubs, but from time to time mothers will try and defend the cubs and therefore get into a bit of a spot of bother with the males. So those are kind of just realities of what's going on. We're very lucky that we are here to document this and that it's kind of happening now, because it kind of does only happen every 2 or 3 years on average. Will you get new leopards coming in and trying to overthrow the kind of dominant male that's beginning to get a little bit old, which again happened about 3 years ago when Tingana came on and pushed Mvula off, and now it's the Hukumuri male coming on and putting some pressure on Tingana. So those are the realities and kind of hardships of what's going on with the leopard in this area. Very good. We're going to stay put. He looks quite comfortable for now, but I'm confident he's going to get up and move at some point during the course of the day, hopefully within the next half an hour. We are sending you back to Jamie with some giraffe.
Well, Well, quite a short, tall, spotted animal, if that makes any sense. It's a very young giraffe. I mean, not a tiny, tiny calf, but definitely not a fully grown individual. Come back, girl. You were being so patient with us a moment ago. She's obviously had enough. She was waiting for a close-up, and we didn't provide it straight away, and she's decided she's had it, and she's off. Strolling past warthogs. I have never seen as many warthogs as I have in the Mara. They just seem to be everywhere. If I had to guess at how old this particular giraffe is, I would say 8 months. Brendan. While we watch our giraffe stroll away, and then we'll go back to the subject of Brendan's question. Brendan wants to know if I have ever filled with a desire to sing Hakuna Matata when I see warthogs. I confess no, but now that you mention it, it's probably going to be in my head forever after. Of course, Hakuna Matata gets said a lot around here in its more natural context. Literally no problem, no troubles. Have I ever broken into Hakuna Matata around them? No, sadly not. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I wish I could say yes. And even if I did, unfortunately, I don't think that I would subject all of you to something as unpleasant as the experience of my trying to sing a Disney song. Although I will say that every now and again I've seen a sunrise with lions behind it that has inspired the thoughts of the opening song to The Lion King. You know, of course, our favourite fact to trot out when we are watching Warthog is the fact that Pumbaa would have anatomically been a female, most likely, given that he only had 2 warts instead of 4. What do you think about that, Topi? Does that keep you awake at night, that thought? Probably not. Topi, do you sing Hakuna Matata around? I bet the warthogs get really irritated by it. Oh, it's another tourist singing that song again. What is it? Why does this always happen to us? And wondering, of course, left wondering why on earth or how on earth a warthog was meant to be best friends with a meerkat in this particular area, when of course they don't occur here. I'm sure the warthogs are very confused. What's a meerkat? They've never seen one before in their lives. Banded mongoose, on the other hand, now they know what those are. Every time we have to try and control ourselves, because of course every time the Lion King gets mentioned, which as you can imagine happens regularly, we end up talking about the factual inaccuracies, which brings us to Andrew's question. Andrew, warthog do not eat insects. They might every now and again, purely by accident if they happen to be feeding next to one. They're herbivores. So they will eat the shoots, roots, forbs if they can find them and dig them up, grass, anything along those lines. Tiny plants they will nibble on. So they are herbivores, with the caveat to that they are pigs, so they belong to the pig family, and as a result, if there is meat available, they have been known to scavenge off carcasses. And in one very rare and very unusual situation, a warthog was actually photographed and recorded killing an impala lamb. That's not that you can't draw any conclusions from that. It was a once-off crazy moment during the drought where, for whatever reason, this warthog turned on a baby impala. But they do eat meat every now and again. They will scavenge off carcasses, not as often as bush pigs will, but they do it. But they are, by and large, herbivores, and they do not lift up logs and pick up long slimy grubs or anything like that and then eat them. It does not form the main part of their diet. One of those unfortunate misconceptions. There's the male warthog wandering in amongst a group of, I think, no, actually. Might actually be a group of young males with a larger boar. And quite far away, so it's quite difficult to tell at this distance. See how the youngsters have those sideburns. Oh, goodness gracious, we have a new viewer who has joined us. Welcome. I'm going to get your name wrong, and I sincerely apologize because I don't know if it was Eagles Fly or Eagles Sigh. One sounds much happier than the other, but welcome to Eagles Fly, I think. Yes, this is completely 100%. I was right. They fly. Eagles Fly, welcome to our live safaris. Yes, it is completely 100% live, hence why we are able to address your question straight away or as immediately as is possible. It is live. It means send through your questions. We are live twice a day, every day, from 2 different locations. The Masai Mara, which is where we are at the moment, and then South Africa in the greater Kruger area. So isn't that exciting? Welcome to your brand new addiction. I hope you're excited. I'm excited for you. What a fantastic discovery you have just made. You won't regret it. Oh, well, since you're posing so beautifully, here you go. And this is for Alice in Final Control, who has recently developed a fixation on topi on termite mounds. They do this, of course, to gain a little bit of height. Everybody walks away from the Mara with a picture of a topi on a termite mound. It's just what they do. It allows them to keep an eye on the surroundings, and for the males also, of course, allows them to survey everything the light touches so that they can go and chase away the next male that might decide to mate with the females. Very common to see a topi on a termite mound. Well, Ashley is absolutely right. They do look like goats when they stand on the termite mounds. To be honest, they kind of look like goats a lot of the time. They look like a mixture between goats and antelope. That's what I feel anyway, especially around the face. So, apparently, Noelle's microscope explorations continue, and she's got something that has baffled even Final Control.
They are continuing, Jamie. Thank you so much. All right, so we've got another What Am I? And this is actually one of my favorite things to talk about. It's an unexpected little surprise that we find in the bush, and I've actually found one or two a couple of times and managed to have the female come out of this area where she has made her nest. And I would be curious to know what all of you might think about this and what it might be. Now, the males are hardly ever seen. I've never seen a male. I can't even find a male in my insect field guide. I can't even find a picture of a male, just of the females. And the female will build this using various different organic materials. Acacia thorns are used often. And then she makes this sort of little cocoon inside, and then she'll pop her head out pretty much and then sort of drag around her nest and pull herself forward. I had one that lived on the dashboard of my cruiser for about 2 weeks, and she would entertain us while we were busy waiting for leopards to move, like what Scott's doing. So while I am chatting here, Simply Lucid, you say it might be a termite. Simply Lucid, it is an insect that does this. And I can actually see, haha, James Richard, you've done it again. James Richard, it is in fact a bagworm. Well done, my friend, well done. All right, so here we go. This is a bagworm nest of a female. And she has taken the thorns of an acacia tree and then woven her nest on the inside here. She's no longer living in here. Her head would have popped out on this part, and then she would have sort of dragged her body very slowly like this. A bagworm. absolutely fascinating species. I always enjoy them. Not just for the fact that they're incredible and nature's incredible, but that it's also slightly comical as they move around. Now, Jamie was busy with a giraffe. I've got a giraffe skull just over here. It's a heavy skull, so I'm actually going to perch it on Ferg's seat here. So this is the skull of a giraffe. Now, giraffes don't have horns. They have something called ossicones, which is calcified cartilage that sticks onto the skull here. So these are the ossicones. And then this would be a male, or would have been a male giraffe. Very thick ossicones. And then you can see where they've actually gotten flattened on top from fighting. Giraffe males do something, oh sorry, Ferg, do something called necking, where they stand either shoulder to shoulder or shoulder to hip and hit each other with their heads back and forth. Now, giraffes being browsers being a species that just eats leaves. This is the tooth structure, a very square tooth structure that is quite worn down. This was an old male when it passed away, and that's for grinding those leaves inside of the mouth. Now, the giraffe you saw with Jamie was a Maasai giraffe. It's one of the 4 species of giraffe that we get on the continent now. I was actually trying to find you on the interweb here some pictures of the species using color coding, and amazingly I can only find the old breakdown. So we used to say that there was 1 species of giraffe and 9 subspecies. We now have 4 species and 5 subspecies, and that's from a lot of research using just under 200 different DNA samples. So for instance, the thorny-croft giraffe is no longer considered its own subspecies. It's now been smooshed into, I believe, the reticulated giraffe, which is down here. And one of the ways that we used to define which giraffe was which had to do with the spot pattern, the coat patterns, not the spot pattern like a leopard, but on the lip there, but the actual coat patterns. And each one was considered unique to the subspecies, but with the genetic material, they've now decided that that doesn't apply as much as it applied before. So there we've got our Maasai giraffe, reminds me a little bit of the Canadian flag. And then at the bottom, the giraffe skull would have had a similar coat pattern to that. Although that being said, they did for a while have Maasai giraffes that were brought from East Africa down to South Africa as gifts, and so you'll sometimes see a southern giraffe with a coat pattern that looks a little bit more Maasai, and so that has to do with that breeding. So you could take giraffe from here and bring them to South Luangwa National Park to where the thorny-croft giraffe are and breed them together. The only reason why that doesn't happen is that they're geologically placed where they can't actually physically get to each other. We would have to interfere as humans, which is not necessarily the best bet. It'd be like blue wildebeest and black wildebeest in South Africa. They can interbreed, but they don't occur in areas naturally where they would actually come into contact with each other, funnily enough. Now, this is one of my favorite websites for giraffe, and I just want to tell everybody about it. It's the giraffeconservation.org, and they've done a really great write-up on the species, and this is where a lot of the good papers have come through, and they've given a very meticulous breakdown of the new species. So I think everybody, there we go. With the names, the new Latin names, some of them have changed, the scientific names, and also the new number system. So interestingly enough, giraffes as a whole across the continent, the population numbers are actually plummeting. And it's something that we discuss, but it's not something we discuss often, because rhino and elephant are so much in the spotlight that everything else that's suffering tends to break down a bit. So these numbers actually show a difference, as they did before when we did the 9 different subspecies, that are actually, in my opinion, showing that maybe that giraffes don't need as much work, even though they still do. It's just the way that the numbers are broken down now. As your thought for the day. Now, Bex, I'm so sorry I missed what you were asking. All right. Jamie is heading home. I'm sure that she's hungry after today and needs a little bit of a rest. I am about to get hungry and need a little bit of a rest as well.
Heading home. I woke up absolutely ravenous this morning for some reason, and now I am beyond ravenous. I've gone through ravenous and out into the other side, My thoughts are currently consumed with the prospect of breakfast and what that might entail. Definitely, I knew I should have had that second cup of tea this morning. Might have helped to stave off the hunger ever so slightly. I don't know why I was so hungry this morning. So we are trundling on our way back after a highly unsuccessful lion search this morning. Although, if I'm honest, I wasn't really trying to look for lions that hard. Just driving vaguely in the areas where they were. But I was more just enjoying a nice peaceful morning out in the Mara without having to rush anywhere. And it's been very pleasant. And since we're trundling along and I don't see any animals anywhere anymore, I thought I'd tell you the story of my dog back in South Africa who has... Oh, hold on. No, hold on from that. Now, we'll hold off on the story of the dog because Bobby is wondering about something that is entirely more relevant to everyone else's lives apart from my own. Bobby, no, we haven't managed to watch any of the Olympics. That is not to say that we couldn't have. We absolutely could. Our internet connection is sufficient such that we could watch the Olympics if we wanted to. I haven't watched any, and you're wondering what is our favorite Olympic sport. Obviously now we're in the Winter Olympics. I'm one of those people, whether it's the Olympics, the proper Olympics, or the Winter Olympics, I like the things like figure skating. I really enjoy watching figure skating, as well as in the other Olympics, gymnastics. I love watching gymnastics. I'm in awe of what it is those people can do. Diving. I used to dive before I watched the person in front of me knock both her front teeth out, and I sort of lost my courage after that. So I enjoy watching diving. I come from a dancing background, so I typically tend to veer towards the more, I guess you could say, the more artistic of the events. Curling baffles me. I can't watch it for any extended period of time. I can't quite understand. I can admire that it is a skill. It goes over my head completely. And I've never been skiing or snowboarding, so I don't have enough experience or behind that. What is your favorite Winter Olympic sport? Rebecca, do you have a favorite? Am I allowed to say Olympics now during the internet show? Is this a thing now? Can I say it? I assume so. Otherwise we're going to be in serious trouble if we have to worry too much about that sort of thing. Okay, so Rebecca's going to think about her favorite Winter Olympic sport. Let's go and find out what Noelle has as her answer.
Jamie, you and I are twins. I also like figure skating very, very, very much. And I really like the gymnastics. Those are the two. And Jamie, just like you, I also haven't been watching the Olympics. I actually don't own a television. And I guess I could stream it on the internet, but no, haven't seen any. But if I were to tune in, then figure skating for the Winter Olympics and gymnastics for the Summer Olympics. Although for some reason I kept thinking gymnastics was also in the Winter Olympics and found out that that's not true. So my memory on that is very old, and obviously you can see I don't really watch them often enough to know that. Now some of you have been asking, do we eat beforehand? Because Jamie was talking about heading home and I was saying we're getting hungry. Our guiding schedules are interesting, so I only start getting hungry sort of when my shift, as it were, is up. So we're usually done around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then I get hungry between 9 and 10. And sometimes if we were out all day, we might bring some snacks with us. especially in the afternoon, maybe an apple or a banana. But yeah, our feeding schedules are very much based around our working schedules, which are very early mornings and then early afternoons into early evenings, and then we sort of eat around that time. Sometimes when you're a brand new guide, you don't even have time to eat. It just depends on your schedule. And I think let's head back to Jamie for her dog story. Jamie, you must be so excited to see your pooch. I'm happy for you. Enjoy, everybody.
Sorry about that, everyone. I don't know exactly when you came to me. Alice tells me that you're with me now. Alice, how long were they on board with us? Oh, wonderful. Okay, I must have just for some reason missed. Oh, look, skeletons. Speaking of the vertebra processes, that little gate. Hello, everyone. There we go. I've got Rebecca back. There you go. A hippo skeleton for you, and the spine, and then the processes on the back of the vertebra. Oh dear, we're attracting attention. Let's go before we get permits checked. Hello. I mean, not that I don't have my permit. I have got my permit, but I just don't feel like being checked again. Hello. It'll be my third time today. Right. We'll stop at this elephant and I'll tell you my story about Lexi, because I thought it was highly entertaining. Hey, big boy. Are you back here now? He's back again. Big tusked old bull that lives around Olololo Gate. There he is. He's a lovely old boy. And a lovely thing to sit and watch rather than the back of my head as I drive. I got a message from my dog's other mother yesterday to tell me that, now bearing in mind Lexi is a Weimaraner, and she is, just to clarify before anybody says anything, probably the dog that has it best in life. She lives out in the open, she tracks rhino for fun, plenty of stimulation, plenty of people around her. But her new trick is she has developed a limp around the guests, so a pity limp. So she all of a sudden can't walk when the guests are around, and then in Emma's exact words, as long as it's just the two of them, if it's just Emma and Lexi, then she is a normal quadruped. So somebody explain that one to me. She's worked out that she gets much love and attention and probably food, despite it being against the rules, when she limps around the guests. And when she knows she's not going to get away with it, then she's absolutely fine. And just to clarify, we've checked her out. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her. She is walking perfectly. So where on earth this pretend limp has come from, this pity limp, is a very interesting question. She's not even really a people kind of a dog. She doesn't mind people. She's grown up around people, but she's usually busy with other things. I don't know where on earth this has come from. Cunning. I'm actually vaguely proud. Very clever. Especially because a lot of the guests at the moment are impressionable young ladies who I think are fawning all over her when she bravely soldiers past them limping. Little liar. She's fine, I promise. We've checked her out. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her. As long as there's no witnesses, she's walking perfectly normally. Just goes to show. They know how to twist us round their little toe pads. Alison says that her dog does this as well, and that it is all for attention. Well, Alison, I'm glad that it is not just Lexi. I don't know why all of a sudden she's decided she needs the attention. She's certainly not short on it. A dog that grows up in a safari lodge always has a friend somewhere to play with her. So she has obviously decided that this is now the best possible way of going about things. It's called emotional manipulation. I spent my life when she was a puppy chasing people around trying to get them to stop feeding her. It was impossible. And the problem is, of course, that guests are now convinced that we're not looking after the dog. Okay, so we're going to continue on our journey towards breakfast. Let's go across to Noelle to find out how she plans on spending the rest of the day after a lovely morning in the tent.
Well, Jamie, the rest of my day, I'm not quite sure as of yet, but many of you were asking, what exactly do we eat? We eat very similar things to what many people across the world eat. We have people who cook for us, thankfully, and not that we can't cook for ourselves, but our schedules are so crazy. So when we get home this morning, there'll be some sort of a breakfast. It might be yogurt and berries. It might be scones and jam. It might be scrambled eggs and bacon. We'll have to wait and see. And then lunchtime is usually something like a salad or a wrap, sometimes soup if it's cold, and then in the evening there's veggies and starch and meats if you eat meat. It's a very normal, basic type of meal. One of my favorite ones that we do is definitely the extras like Jerry's birthday cake, which I came home to last night and was super excited about. It was carrot cake. It was absolutely good. I don't eat cake often, and I was really excited about that. So Jamie, I'm loving your dog story. My dog also spends most of his time in the bush with his actual person. I'm just the pseudo person, and when I do see him, he doesn't do the limp thing, but he milks the scenario as best as he possibly can. And yet when his dad's around, he's perfectly well behaved. I don't really understand how that happens. I think they just understand that we have big hearts. Anyway, I hope you all have enjoyed the tent session with me today. Thank you so much for being with me on my first tent session, and it was fun and interesting, and I'm now absolutely obsessed with that microscope, and I cannot wait to keep using it and look at things in teeny tiny minute detail. Now I'm gonna start heading off, so let's head back up to Jamie so that she can say goodbye properly to all of you.
When I get home, I'm going to buy a birthday cake. I would say I would bake it, but I can't bake to save my life. Last thing I baked wound up green, and it was not meant to be. So I don't bake, but I am going to go and get a birthday. I was going to say regardless of the fact it's not my birthday, but it actually will be my birthday. So I'm going to have 2 birthday cakes. I'm so desperate for a good cake. Ever since we started, I mentioned it earlier on in the drive, I now cannot stop thinking about it. And now Noelle's mentioned Jerry's birthday cake, and I'm consumed by jealousy. What was it, Bex? What type of cake was it? Actually, don't tell me, I don't want to know. Don't want to think about it. Now Rebecca's just told me it was a carrot cake, which is pretty much my favorite type of cake. Right up there with chocolate cake. Oh, the devastation. It's okay. It's okay. I will have cake. At some point I will have cake. And eat it too. Because I can. Shall we finish off our morning as we started it? I think so. I can't see anything else, therefore we will finish with our buffalo herd. How very appropriate. So there you go, a last view of the buffalo herd that we spent the first hour of the morning with, trying to see if we could spot the brand new addition. Turns out they've got 2 new additions to this particular herd. No, I don't know what this afternoon's sunset safari will hold. Hopefully Djuma manages to get on top of their vehicle issues. It sounds like they've had a really tough time that side, so we're thinking of them as they go about the general business of post-TV repairs. At least it waited mostly until after the TV shows. So thanks everyone for joining us on the Sunrise Safari. It's been an absolute pleasure and a joy sharing it with you. We will catch up with you in a few short hours on the Sunset Safari, so join us then to find out what we have in store for all of you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.